The War Council chamber aboard the dreadnought Valorius hummed with the kind of tension that makes even seasoned warriors check their pulse. Commander Vex'Toral of the Kryllian Armada stood at the holographic display, his three eyes narrowed in what his species considered a confident smirk. Around him, the representatives of the Galactic Coalition sat in their respective gravity pods, waiting for him to deliver the news they had all been anticipating for cycles. "Honored members," Vex'Toral began, his voice carrying that particular tone of superiority that came from commanding 17,000 warships. "I am pleased to announce that our preliminary scans of the human homeworld are complete. The invasion can proceed as scheduled." A ripple of satisfied clicks, chirps, and electromagnetic pulses filled the chamber. Vex'Toral allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before continuing. "Our intelligence confirms what we suspected. These humans are a primitive species. Barely past the atomic age, they have not achieved faster than light travel. They have not developed plasma shielding. They have not even unified their own planet under a single government." He paused for effect, letting the absurdity of that last point sink in. "In fact, they are currently engaged in approximately 47 separate armed conflicts with themselves." General Krethix, a towering mantis-like warrior from the sectoid hierarchy, leaned forward in his pod. "Forgive my interruption, Commander, but did you say they are fighting themselves?" "Correct, General. Multiple factions, nations as they call them, engaged in territorial disputes, resource wars, and ideological conflicts. Quite barbaric, really." The general's mandibles clacked together in amusement. "And these are the creatures who intercepted our probe last rotation, the ones who sent it back with rude pictographs on its hull." Vex'Toral's middle eye twitched at the memory. The probe had been returned with primitive spray paint, depicting what the linguistics team determined was an extremely offensive gesture involving human anatomy. Below it, in crude galactic standard, someone had written, "Come at us, space bugs." "Yes, General. The same ones." "Then they have insulted the coalition." Ambassador Trilliana interjected, her voice dripping with the kind of diplomatic venom that comes from centuries of bureaucratic warfare. "They must be taught their place in the galactic hierarchy. We cannot allow such disrespect to go unpunished." "Precisely why we are here," Vex'Toral agreed. "The operation is simple. We jump our fleet into their system, demonstrate overwhelming force, and accept their surrender. Based on our projections, the entire war should last approximately 6 of their hours, 10 at most if they are particularly stubborn." "And if they refuse to surrender?" asked Science Officer Zelmora, her tentacles writhing with what appeared to be genuine curiosity. Vex'Toral's laugh was the sound of grinding metal. "Then we glass one of their smaller cities, as a demonstration. It usually convinces primitives to see reason. Though honestly, I doubt it will come to that. Our psychological profile suggests they will fold immediately once they see our fleet. Fear is universal, after all." What Commander Vex'Toral did not know, could not have known, was that at that exact moment, approximately 1.3 light-years away, in a facility buried deep beneath the Colorado mountains, a very different conversation was taking place. "Sir, we have confirmed FTL signatures at the edge of the Oort cloud, multiple vessels. Estimate 17,000 contacts and counting." Colonel Marcus Webb did not look up from his coffee. He had been expecting this call for 3 weeks, ever since the probe had come back with its hull scorched and its databanks wiped. The techs in Area 51 had managed to recover enough to know someone was watching. Someone was planning. Someone was coming. "How long until they reach Earth orbit?" he asked, his voice carrying the kind of calm that comes from having seen too much already. "At their current velocity. Approximately 72 hours, sir." "Excellent." Webb set down his coffee and pressed a button on his desk. "Get me General Hawkins at NORAD, Admiral Kowalski at Pacific Command, and someone find Major Okonkwo. Last I heard, she was teaching hand-to-hand combat to the Space Force recruits." The young lieutenant at the communications station looked confused. "Sir, should I initiate the emergency protocols? Alert the civilian government? Begin evacuation procedures?" Webb smiled. It was not a particularly nice smile. "Son, why would we evacuate? We have been preparing for this scenario since 1947. Hell, some of us have been hoping for it. Do you know how hard it is to justify a military budget for space defense when you cannot tell Congress who you are defending against?" "But sir, 17,000 ships is a good start, Lieutenant. Now get me those calls, and someone wake up Dr. Patel at the Directed Energy Weapons Lab. Tell her Christmas came early this year. 72 hours later, the Kryllian Armada emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's lunar orbit. It was, by any objective measure, an impressive sight. 17,000 warships, ranging from small corvettes to massive dreadnoughts, arranged in a formation that had struck fear into 36 civilizations before this one. Commander Vex'Toral stood on the bridge of his flagship, all three eyes fixed on the blue and white planet slowly rotating below them. Open a channel on all frequencies. Let us give these humans one chance to surrender before we begin the bombardment. The communications officer, a young Kryllian named Pelax, who had never seen actual combat, worked his controls with trembling hands. Channel open, Commander. Vex'Toral straightened his military harness and activated the holographic recorder. This transmission would be studied in military academies for generations. Attention, primitive inhabitants of the planet you call Earth. I am Commander Vex'Toral of the Kryllian Armada, acting on behalf of the Galactic Coalition, who have trespassed against Coalition space, vandalized Coalition property, and shown disrespect to powers far beyond your comprehension. We are here to accept your unconditional surrender. You have 1 of your hours to respond. Choose wisely. He cut the transmission and turned to his tactical officer. Begin scanning for their military installations. I want targets ready in case they are foolish enough to refuse. Sir, the tactical officer said slowly, his voice uncertain. I am detecting significant anomalies. What kind of anomalies? Well, sir, the good news is that I have located their military installations, hundreds of them scattered across the planet's surface. And the bad news? They are all pointing weapons at us, sir. Every single one. They appear to have been tracking our approach for the last 72 hours. Vex'Toral felt a cold sensation in his primary stomach. That is impossible. They do not have the sensor technology to detect us at that range. Nevertheless, sir, they are clearly targeting us. I am reading massive power buildups at multiple sites. These energy signatures are off our charts. Before Vex'Toral could respond, the communications panel chimed. Incoming transmission from the planet below. Put it through, he ordered, trying to keep the uncertainty out of his voice. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a human male in military uniform. He appeared to be middle-aged by their standards, with graying hair and eyes that held absolutely no fear whatsoever. In fact, if Vex'Toral had to describe the expression, he would say the human looked almost bored. This is Colonel Marcus Webb, United Earth Defense Force. We received your transmission, Commander Vex'Toral. The human pronounced his name perfectly, which was oddly unsettling. And we would like to thank you. Vex'Toral blinked all three eyes in confusion. Thank us? Absolutely. You see, we have been running defense simulations for decades now, but there is only so much you can learn from computer models and war games. We have been desperately hoping someone would actually show up so we could test our weapons systems under real combat conditions. Your timing is impeccable. Honestly. There was laughter in the background of the transmission. Human laughter. Multiple voices. Clearly amused by something. You dare mock the Kryllian Armada? Vex'Toral sputtered, his dorsal spines rising in indignation. Mock? No, Commander. We are genuinely grateful. Tell me, did you bring different ship classes? Various shield configurations? Please tell me you brought different shield configurations. We have 3 competing theories on the optimal frequency for our particle beams, and this would really help settle the debate. Vex'Toral looked at his officers. They looked back at him with equal confusion. This was not how primitives were supposed to react. Where was the fear, the panic, the desperate pleas for mercy? Human Webb, he said slowly, perhaps you do not understand your situation. We have 17,000 warships. You have a barely industrialized planet with no unified defense force. Surrender now and your deaths will be quick. Webb's expression did not change. Oh, we understand perfectly, Commander. You have 17,000 targets, and we have had 3 generations to prepare for this exact scenario. Question though. Before we start, do your ships have some kind of IFF system? Because we would really prefer not to shoot down any escape pods once this kicks off. We are trying to be professional about this. Escape pods? We are the ones with the fleet. For now, yes. Look, Commander. I am going to level with you. You seem like a reasonable being, all things considered. Turn your ships around, go back to wherever you came from, and we will call this whole thing a drill. No harm, No foul. We got some live sensor data, you got some intelligence on human capabilities. Everybody wins. Vex'Toral's confidence was beginning to crack, but he had spent too many cycles rising through the military ranks to back down now. Pride was a powerful force, even in species that claimed to have evolved beyond it. You have one more chance, human. Surrender or face annihilation. Which side? Actually sighed, like Vex'Toral was being unreasonable. Okay then, we tried the diplomatic approach. Just remember, you started this. All units, weapons free. Let us show our guests what humanity has been working on. The transmission cut out. For exactly 3.7 seconds, nothing happened. Vex'Toral was about to declare victory when his tactical officer screamed, "Incoming!" Multiple launches from the planetary surface. Hundreds of them. No, thousands. They are everywhere. The view screen erupted with data. Missiles. Thousands of missiles were screaming up from Earth's surface on pillars of nuclear fire, but these were not primitive chemical rockets. These were plasma drive interceptors, moving at velocities that should have been impossible for a pre-FTL species. Evasive maneuvers. Activate point defense systems. Vex'Toral shouted, watching his perfect formation begin to dissolve into chaos. The first wave of missiles struck the outlying corvettes. The Kryllian shields, designed to deflect standard energy weapons and kinetic projectiles, held for approximately 0.03 seconds before catastrophically failing. The warheads were not explosive. They were worse. They were quantum disruptors, weapons that should not have existed outside of theoretical physics papers. Ship after ship simply ceased to exist, their molecular bonds unraveling at the atomic level. "Sir, we have lost 200 vessels in the first salvo," the tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with panic. "Return fire. All ships, target the launch sites." The Armada's weapons opened up, sending streams of plasma and antimatter toward the planet below. It should have been devastating. It should have been the beginning of the end for humanity. Instead, every single shot hit invisible barriers approximately 200 kilometers above Earth's surface. The entire planet was shielded, not with primitive force fields that could be overwhelmed, but with some kind of gravitational lens that bent space itself, redirecting the incoming fire harmlessly into the void. "Impossible," Vex'Toral whispered. "They are primitives. They do not have this technology." "Sir," Communications Officer Pellock shouted, "we are receiving another transmission from the planet." This time it was not Colonel Webb. It was a woman in a different uniform, younger, with dark skin and eyes that sparkled with what could only be described as predatory amusement. "Commander Vex'Toral, this is Major Amara Okonkwo, Space Combat Division. Colonel Webb has asked me to handle the tactical portion of today's exercise. I hope you don't mind, but we are going to need to escalate things a bit. The initial missile strike was just to test your shield response time. Now we are going to see how you handle sustained fire. This is not an exercise, you insane primate." Vex'Toral roared. "Of course it is," Okonkwo replied cheerfully. "For us anyway. For you it is very much a real invasion. Perspective is everything, Commander." Launching second wave now. This time, the missiles came from the moon. Hidden bases that had not registered on any of the Armada's scans opened their launch bays and released a swarm of projectiles that made the first wave look gentle by comparison. How did they build bases on their moon without us detecting them? General Krafix demanded over the fleet-wide channel, his massive dreadnought shuddering as point defense lasers tried desperately to intercept the incoming fire. "The same way we built bases on Mars, Europa, Titan, and approximately 47 asteroids in this system," came a new voice over the communication channel. This one belonged to an older human woman with silver hair and a lab coat visible beneath her military insignia. "Dr. Kavita Patel, Advanced Weapons Research. We have been preparing for guests like you since before most of your crew members were born. Commander, did you really think a species that split the atom less than a century after achieving powered flight would just stop innovating?" The second wave hit the Armada like a hammer blow. The Kryllian ships tried to retreat, tried to reform their lines, tried to do anything other than die. It did not help. The human missiles were not just fast, they were smart. They adapted to countermeasures in real time, coordinated their attacks, and exploited every weakness in the Armada's formation. Vex'Toral watched in horror as his fleet, the pride of the Kryllian military, was systematically dismantled by a species that was not supposed to be able to fight back. Sir, we have lost 4,000 ships, the tactical officer reported. Casualties are catastrophic. We need to retreat. Agreed, General Krathix's voice came through, all bravado gone. This was a mistake. Sound the retreat. The surviving ships of the Armada turned to flee, their faster-than-light drives charging for an emergency jump. They almost made it. Attention Kryllian vessels. Came another transmission, this one from a young human male who looked far too relaxed for someone in the middle of a battle. This is Captain Jake Morrison, FTL Interdiction Division. We cannot let you leave just yet, folks. See, we spent a lot of money on these gravity well generators, and we have been dying to test them in actual combat. So sit tight. This will only take a few more minutes. Space itself seemed to congeal around the fleeing ships. Their FTL drives sputtered and failed, unable to punch through the distorted space-time that now surrounded them. They were trapped. No. No. Vex'Toral muttered, watching his tactical display update in real time. 6,000 ships left. 5,000. 4,000. Sir, should we surrender? Telox asked quietly. Vex'Toral wanted to say yes. Every tactical bone in his body was screaming at him to surrender, to save what was left of his command. But the thought of being the commander who lost an entire armada to a primitive species, who surrendered without landing a single meaningful blow, was too much for his pride to bear. No, he said firmly. We fight to the last ship. Ready the dreadnought's main cannon. If we are going down, we are taking as many of them with us as possible. The flagship's massive weapon began to charge, drawing power from every available system. It was designed to crack planets, to reduce entire continents to molten slag. If nothing else, Vex'Toral would show these humans the true power of the Galactic Coalition. The charge reached 100%. He gave the order to fire. The beam lanced out, a column of concentrated antimatter capable of burning through any known substance. It struck Earth's gravitational shield and simply stopped. The energy dissipated harmlessly across the surface of the barrier like water against glass. Well, that was rude, came Dr. Patel's voice again. Did you just try to planet crack us, Commander? After we have been so hospitable, I am afraid that violated the rules of engagement. Deploying orbital defense platforms now. The moon's surface erupted with activity. Massive railguns, hidden beneath fake craters and camouflaged installations, rose on hydraulic platforms. They did not fire missiles. They fired tungsten rods the size of skyscrapers, accelerated to a significant fraction of light speed. The dreadnought's shields lasted approximately 1.5 seconds. Vex'Toral felt the deck pitch beneath him as the kinetic projectiles tore through his ship like tissue paper. Alarms screamed. Systems failed. People died. All hands, abandon ship, he shouted, finally accepting the inevitable. This is Commander Vex'Toral. All vessels are ordered to surrender immediately. The firing stopped. The sudden silence was almost worse than the chaos had been. Smart choice, Commander. Colonel Webb's voice returned, still maddeningly calm. All Kryllian vessels, power down your weapons and drop your shields. Our recovery teams will begin collecting your escape pods shortly. Please remain calm and do not attempt any hostile actions. This has been a very successful exercise, and we would hate to have to restart the live fire portion. Vex'Toral slumped in his command chair, watching his crew evacuate around him. Through the shattered viewports, he could see the wreckage of his armada scattered across space like broken toys. 6 hours, he muttered to himself. I said this would take 6 hours. Commander Telox asked, preparing to enter an escape pod. Nothing. Go, save yourself. As his communications officer fled, Vex'Toral activated one final transmission to the planet below. Colonel Webb, I must ask. How? How does a primitive species develop such weapons? Such defenses? You should not have this technology for at least another 1,000 cycles. Webb's face appeared on screen one last time. His expression was almost sympathetic. Commander, humans have been fighting wars for our entire history. We have had conflicts over food, water, territory, ideology, religion, and resources we did not even need. We have built weapons capable of destroying ourselves 100 times over. When we finally detected your probes watching us 15 years ago, do you know what we did? Vex'Toral shook his head numbly. We stopped fighting each other. For the first time in human history, we had a common enemy. We unified. We pooled our resources. Every nation, every corporation, Every brilliant mind on the planet working toward one goal, making sure that when you finally came, you would regret it. You gave us purpose, Commander. You gave us focus. So really, we should thank you. The transmission ended. Vex'Toral sat alone on his dying ship and laughed. It was the bitter laugh of someone who had just learned a very expensive lesson. 17,000 ships. The pride of the Kryllian Armada, reduced to scrap and prisoners in less than 4 hours, not by a superior force, not by a more advanced civilization, but by a species that had taken the threat of invasion and treated it like a practice exam. As the human recovery vessels approached to collect him, Vex'Toral had one final thought. The galaxy was going to be very, very surprised when Earth decided it was ready to join the wider community, and he was going to be the one who had to tell them what was coming. The humans called it practice. The human detention facility was not what Commander Vex'Toral had expected. Then again, nothing about the last 6 hours had been what he expected, so perhaps he should have stopped being surprised. The cell was clean, comfortable, even. There was a sleeping platform designed for Kryllian physiology, a waste recycler that recognized his biological needs, and a food dispenser that offered meals compatible with his digestive system. The walls were a pleasant neutral color, and soft lighting mimicked the day and night cycles of his homeworld. It was humiliating. Vex'Toral would have preferred a dark hole in the ground. At least that would have matched his mood. Instead, the humans had provided accommodations that suggested they had been studying Kryllian biology for quite some time, which meant they had been planning for which meant everything, absolutely everything, had been calculated. The door to his cell slid open with a soft hiss. Colonel Webb entered, carrying 2 cups of some steaming liquid. He offered one to Vex'Toral. "What is this?" the Kryllian commander asked suspiciously. "Coffee." "Well, synthetic coffee compatible with your biochemistry. Our xenobiologists worked overtime on this one. Fair warning, though. It tastes terrible. Real coffee is one of those things you need human taste buds to appreciate." Despite himself, Vex'Toral took the cup. It did indeed taste terrible, but the warmth was oddly comforting. "Why are you being kind to me? I tried to invade your planet. I was prepared to glass your cities." Webb sat down on a chair that definitely had not been there a moment ago. The humans had furniture that appeared when needed. Of course they did, because you surrendered when you realized you were beaten. You saved lives, Commander, both human and Kryllian. That deserves respect, even from an enemy. "We are at war." "No," Webb corrected gently. "You declared war. We declined to participate." "There is a difference. Tell me something, Vex'Toral. In all your military training, did anyone ever teach you to verify your intelligence before launching an invasion?" The question stung because Vex'Toral knew the answer. "Our scans indicated you were primitive." HFY divided. "All of that was accurate. On the surface, yes. But you never dug deeper. You never asked why a species capable of atomic energy had not destroyed itself already. You never wondered why we had so many active military installations. You assumed we were fighting each other, which we were, but you never considered that we might also be preparing for someone else." Webb took a sip of his own coffee. "Your mistake was assuming that primitive meant helpless. How did you hide all of this? The moon bases, the orbital platforms, the gravity well generators, our sensors should have detected the construction." Webb smiled that infuriating smile again. "We built them inside, hollowed out the moon, dug into Mars, carved out asteroids from the inside. Your sensors were looking for surface installations, so that is what we showed you. A few military bases, some nuclear silos, conventional defenses. Meanwhile, the real hardware was buried under kilometers of rock and ice." Vex'Toral felt his spines droop in defeat. "You led us into a trap. We gave you every opportunity to walk away. The transmission, the one where we sent your probe back, that was a warning, Commander. We were telling you to stay away. You chose not to listen." Before Vex'Toral could respond, the door opened again. This time, a different human entered. She was older than Webb, with white hair and an expression that suggested she had seen empires rise and fall and found them all equally tedious. "Commander Vex'Toral," she said, her voice carrying authority that made even Webb straighten slightly, "I am Secretary General Yuki Tanaka of the United Earth Government. I wanted to speak with you personally before we broadcast our message to the Galactic Coalition." Vex'Toral felt his primary heart skip a beat. "Message? What message?" Tanaka pulled up a holographic display from a device on her wrist. We intercepted all of your fleet communications during the battle. A very interesting reading. Apparently you represent something called the Galactic Coalition, an organization of 73 member species spanning 14 sectors of this arm of the galaxy. Is that correct? It is, Vex'Toral admitted, wondering where this was going. And this coalition considers Earth to be within its territory, despite the fact that we have never been contacted, never been invited to join, and never consented to any such arrangement. The coalition governs all civilizations in this region of space. It is simply how things are done. Not anymore, Tanaka said flatly. In approximately 1 hour we are going to broadcast footage of this entire incident to every coalition world simultaneously. Your invasion, your defeat, and the current status of your surviving forces. We estimate the transmission will reach coalition space in about 3 weeks. Vex'Toral's 3 eyes widened in horror. You cannot. The humiliation. The political consequences. My entire species will be a laughingstock. Should have thought of that before you declared war, Webb said mildly, sipping his coffee. But that is not all, Tanaka continued, pulling up another display. We are also going to extend an invitation to the coalition. We are willing to establish diplomatic relations, exchange ambassadors, share certain technologies, engage in trade, all the normal things that civilized species do when they meet each other. This was so unexpected that Vex'Toral actually dropped his cup. It clattered to the floor, spilling synthetic coffee everywhere. You would help us after we attacked you? Help is a strong word, Tanaka replied. We are going to establish our position in the galactic hierarchy. Make it clear that Earth is not some primitive backwater to be conquered on a whim. We are not interested in being galactic bullies either. Violence should always be a last resort, even when you are very, very good at it. The coalition will never accept this. They will send more ships, bigger fleets. They will not tolerate being embarrassed by primitives. Webb laughed. Actually laughed out loud. Commander, how many ships do you think we destroyed today? Approximately 14,700 vessels were lost. Another 2,000 were too damaged to recover. And do you know how much ammunition we expended? How many of our weapons platforms we depleted? Vex'Toral shook his head slowly. 12%. We used 12% of our ready stockpiles. We have enough firepower in this system alone to repel an invasion force 10 times the size of yours. And that is just what we have built in the last 15 years. We are already working on Generation 2 weapons, so please, by all means let the coalition send more ships. We could use the target practice. The door opened a third time. Major Okonkwo entered, looking pleased with herself. Secretary General, the recovered coalition officers are asking to speak with their leaders. Should we allow it? Absolutely, Tanaka said. In fact, let us make it a conference call. Get me the coalition High Council on the line. It is time we introduced ourselves properly. 20 minutes later, Vex'Toral found himself standing in a communication chamber alongside General Krathik's Ambassador Treliana and Science Officer Zelmora. They were the highest-ranking coalition officials to survive the battle. Before them, a massive holographic display showed the faces of the 12 members of the coalition High Council. Councillor Praxton, a being who resembled a floating jellyfish made of light, spoke first. Commander Vex'Toral, explain yourself. We have received fragmentary reports of a disaster. What has happened to the Armada? Before Vex'Toral could answer, Secretary General Tanaka stepped into view. Allow me to explain, Counselor. I am Secretary General Yuki Tanaka, representing the United Earth Government. Your Armada declared war on my planet approximately 6 hours ago. We have accepted their surrender and are currently holding 17,000 prisoners of war. We will be returning them to you shortly, along with our formal diplomatic credentials and a strongly worded complaint about your invasion policies. The silence from the council was deafening. Finally, Councillor Murkesh, a crystalline being whose voice sounded like wind chimes, managed to speak. This is impossible. You are a pre-FTL species. Our reports indicated you were decades away from space combat capability. Dr. Patel appeared beside Tanaka, her lab coat now replaced with a formal diplomatic uniform. Your reports were based on surface observations and the assumption that we would develop technology in a linear fashion. We did not. When we detected your surveillance probes, we redirected our entire industrial capacity toward defense. We skipped several generations of conventional development and went straight for the theoretical weapons systems our physicists had been studying. Turns out having a common enemy is a wonderful motivator for scientific advancement. Counselor Vex'Toral, whose species Vex'Toral recognized as the Dronai Collective, leaned forward in the display. If what you say is true, then you possess weapons technology far beyond what should be possible for your developmental stage. That makes you dangerous. Unpredictable. We are absolutely dangerous, Webb agreed, stepping into view. We are a species that developed nuclear weapons before we developed computers. We have spent the last 70,000 years fighting wars over everything from territorial borders to whose imaginary friend is better. We have nearly driven ourselves extinct at least 3 times that we know of, so yes, we are dangerous. But we are not unreasonable. Tanaka pulled up another holographic display. We are prepared to share our gravity manipulation technology with the Coalition. We are also prepared to share our advances in quantum computing and directed energy weapons. In exchange, we want full membership in the Galactic Coalition, recognition of our sovereignty over the Sol system, and assurances that no member species will attempt another invasion. The Council members looked at each other, their various forms of non-verbal communication creating a strange symphony of lights, sounds, and pheromones. Finally, Councillor Praxton spoke again. This is highly irregular. Species are not admitted to the Coalition until they achieve faster-than-light travel. It is a fundamental requirement. Oh, about that, Captain Morrison's voice came from off-screen. A moment later, he appeared in the holographic feed, grinning like a child on his birthday. We actually cracked FTL about 3 years ago. Just didn't see any point in advertising it. Why would we leave our home system when we knew you folks were planning to visit? Seemed rude to not be home when guests arrived. Vex'Toral wanted to scream. Every single thing, every assumption, every piece of intelligence had been wrong. The humans had been ready. They had been waiting. They had been hoping someone would be stupid enough to attack. General Krothix, who had been silent until now, finally spoke. Counselors, I was on the front lines of this engagement. I have fought in 47 campaigns across the galaxy. I have never, and I mean never, encountered a species more prepared for warfare than these humans. If they say they can repel a larger invasion, I believe them. If they say they will share their technology, I recommend we accept. And if they say they want membership in the Coalition, I strongly suggest we grant it. Seconded, Ambassador Tralliana added quietly, I have spent 300 cycles studying pre-FTL species. Humanity is unique. They are aggressive, yes, but they are also innovative, adaptable, and apparently capable of unifying their entire species in less than 2 decades when properly motivated. These are not traits to dismiss. Science Officer Zelmora's tentacles writhed in what Vex'Toral recognized as her species' expression of excitement. Counselors, I have reviewed the weapon systems the humans deployed. Their approach to quantum mechanics alone would advance our understanding by decades. If they are willing to share this knowledge, we would be fools to refuse. The Council deliberated for what felt like hours but was probably only minutes. Finally, Councillor Praxton spoke. Very well, the Coalition accepts Earth's proposal. Full membership will be granted, pending the standard diplomatic protocols. We will send an ambassadorial delegation within the next cycle. However, we have conditions. Name them, Tanaka said. First, you will share your weapons technology only with the Coalition Defense Forces, not individual member species. Second, you will allow Coalition observers at your military installations to ensure compliance with galactic warfare conventions. Third, you will agree to a mutual defense pact. If any Coalition world is threatened, Earth will be expected to assist. Tanaka glanced at Webb, who nodded slightly. We agree to the first and third conditions. However, instead of observers at our military installations, we propose a joint research and development program. Your scientists work with ours. Full transparency, full cooperation. That way, you get the technology and we get to learn from species with thousands of years more experience than us. Everybody wins. The Council members conferred again. This time the discussion was shorter. Agreed, Braxton said. Welcome to the Galactic Coalition, Earth. Try not to start any wars. Webb grinned. No promises, but we will do our best. The transmission ended. Tanaka turned to face the 4 captured Coalition officers. You will be returned to your people within the week. All prisoners will be released unharmed. We will even repair your damaged ships before we send them back. free of charge. Consider it a goodwill gesture." Vex'Toral bowed his head. "I must ask, Secretary General, why did you prepare so thoroughly? 15 years is a long time to maintain such vigilance. Were you not tempted to assume the probes were harmless, to go back to your internal conflicts?" Tanaka's expression grew serious. "Commander, humanity has a saying, hope for the best, prepare for the worst. We hoped you would be peaceful explorers. We prepared for you to be conquerors. As it turned out, we prepared correctly. But how did you maintain unity for so long? How did you convince your nations to work together?" It was Webb who answered. "We showed them the alternative. Every world leader, every corporate executive, every person in a position of power, we showed them what would happen if we were not ready when you arrived. We showed them projections of invasion, occupation, extinction, and then we asked them a simple question: would you rather spend resources on fighting each other, or on making sure no alien species ever makes the mistake of thinking we are easy prey?" "Fear," Vex'Toral said quietly. "You unified through fear." "No," Tanaka corrected. "We unified through purpose. Fear was just the catalyst. What kept us together was the realization that we could accomplish more by working together than by fighting each other. You gave us that gift, Commander. You made us look up at the stars and realize we were not alone, and if we were not alone, we needed to be ready." General Kryllian stepped forward. "I have a question for you humans. What happens now? You have proven yourselves in combat. You have secured membership in the coalition. What are your intentions toward the wider galaxy?" Captain Morrison, who had been listening quietly, laughed. "Honestly, we were kind of hoping you guys would have some interesting hobbies to share. Maybe some sports we have not invented yet. Good restaurants. We have been stuck in our own system for so long. We are dying to see what is out there. You went to all this effort, built all these weapons, unified your entire species, just so you could go sightseeing?" Zelmora asked, her tentacles quivering with confusion. "Well, when you put it like that, it sounds silly," Webb admitted. "But yes, essentially, we built the weapons because we did not want to be conquered. The fact that they worked so well is almost beside the point. The real goal was always to earn our place at the galactic table as equals, not subjects." Vex'Toral felt something shift in his understanding. "You are not conquerors." "God, no," Tanaka said, looking horrified. "We have seen what happens when species try to build empires. It never ends well. No, Commander, we are explorers who happen to be very, very good at defending ourselves." "There is a difference." Over the next week, Vex'Toral and the other coalition prisoners were treated to a tour of Earth that fundamentally changed how they viewed humanity. They visited cities where a dozen different cultures coexisted peacefully. They saw research facilities where scientists from every nation worked side by side. They met with world leaders who spoke passionately about the future they were building together. They also visited the memorials, fields of white markers stretching to the horizon, commemorating the wars humanity had fought against itself, museums filled with artifacts from conflicts that had killed millions, monuments to the victims of nuclear weapons, chemical warfare, and industrial-scale slaughter. "We do not hide our past," Tanaka explained as they stood before a memorial wall listing the names of genocide victims. "We remember it. We study it. We teach our children about the horrors we inflicted on each other. Not because we are proud of it, but because we never want to forget the cost of conflict." "And yet you built weapons capable of destroying my entire fleet," Vex'Toral said quietly. "Because we learned the hard way that sometimes the only way to prevent war is to be too dangerous to attack. Peace through strength is not ideal, Commander, but it is better than peace through submission." On the day of his departure, Vex'Toral was granted one final meeting with Colonel Webb. They stood in an observation deck, looking out at the repaired Kryllian vessels preparing for their journey home. "I owe you an apology," Vex'Toral said. "I underestimated your species. I underestimated humanity." Webb shrugged. "You were working with bad information. That is not entirely your fault. Though you maybe should have done more reconnaissance before declaring war. I have been thinking about your offer. The Joint Research Program. The Kryllian Empire would be honored to participate. We have much to learn from you, and we from you," Webb said. "Genuinely. 15,000 years of space travel, Commander. The things you have seen, the knowledge you have accumulated, that is invaluable to us. We may be good at building weapons, but we are babies when it comes to actually navigating the galaxy." "One more question before I go," Vex'Toral said, What would you have done if we had not surrendered? If we had fought to the last ship? Webb was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, we would have disabled every vessel, pulled your crews to safety, and then had a very uncomfortable conversation about why you were so determined to die for a bad decision. We had non-lethal options ready, Commander. Stasis fields, neural dampeners, electromagnetic pulse weapons designed to shut down ships without killing the crew. We were prepared to win without genocide. Why? Because every species we destroy is knowledge we lose. Culture we lose. Potential allies we lose. Humanity has spent too long killing each other to be casual about killing others. We will defend ourselves absolutely, but we will not become monsters to defeat monsters. Vex'Toral extended his primary hand in the human gesture of friendship Webb had taught him. Then perhaps there is hope for the galaxy after all. Webb shook his hand firmly. There is always hope, Commander. Sometimes you just have to fight for it. 3 weeks later, the footage of Earth's defense against the Kryllian Armada reached Coalition space. The reaction was immediate and profound. Some species were terrified. Others were impressed. A few declared humanity to be the most dangerous species in known space. They were not wrong, but what the footage also showed was something unexpected. It showed humans providing medical care to wounded Kryllian soldiers. It showed repair crews working around the clock to fix damaged ships. It showed Secretary General Tanaka personally ensuring that every prisoner was treated with dignity and respect. The galaxy watched, and the galaxy learned. Earth was dangerous, yes, but Earth was also fair. Strong but not cruel. Prepared for war but hoping for peace. Within a year, 36 species requested technology exchange programs with Earth. Within 2 years, human advisors were helping to modernize coalition defense forces. Within 5 years, joint human-alien crews were exploring regions of space that had been considered too dangerous for conventional ships. And through it all, humanity never forgot the lesson they had learned from their own bloody history. Strength without wisdom is tyranny, but wisdom without strength is vulnerability. They had declared war on Earth, expecting an easy victory over primitives who could not possibly fight back. Instead, they found a species that had spent millennia fighting the only enemy worthy of their attention, themselves. They had survived, they had learned, they had grown. And when the aliens finally arrived, humanity was ready to show the galaxy what a species forged in the fires of 10,000 wars could really do. The Kryllians called it a disaster. The Coalition called it a wake-up call. Humanity called it Tuesday. And somewhere in a military academy on the Kryllian homeworld, future officers studied the Battle of Earth as a cautionary tale about the dangers of underestimating your enemy. The lesson was always the same. Never assume that primitive means helpless. Never assume that divided means weak. And never ever declare war on a species whose favorite pastime is arguing about the best way to kill things. Because humanity did not just practice war, they perfected it. And then they offered to teach everyone else how to defend themselves. Free of charge, because that is what good neighbors do. The galaxy would never be the same, and humanity would not have it any other way.